the possibility for decentralization, as to take education out of the hands of larger institutions, to assume that as education scales into a large organization, flaws creep in, and what you do is you dilute the magic and the passion of an individual person or a small agile organization, and you weight it down. It's like coming down onto a butterfly with a sledgehammer. And so you actually don't need those economies of scale. It doesn't apply to education. So by decentralizing it and making it possible for each individual person to literally design their own education, and to be able to coordinate small groups of people anywhere to learn anything, you will be able to literally have a completely bespoke education for each individual person, and you make it possible for everybody who has a skill or a life experience that's valuable to find some portion of their life in which they can make some of their income from teaching.
Hello everyone, I'm Suzanne Paul from Get Your Sexy Back. Be you, be empowered and extraordinary you. I interview interesting, inspiring women, and today I have the delight of meeting with Avida Hancock. Avida was introduced to me by a very close friend of mine, Grace Rockmani, who, if you haven't watched her interview on the channel, then go and check it out, because she is super mind-blowing about the future of money, sovereignty and governance. It's amazing what she talks about. And she introduced me to Avida, and Avida is here with me from the comfort of her beautiful living room today. Hello, Avida, how are you?
Oh, hi, thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. So you and I were just speaking about like your amazing career in AI and crypto, and yeah, just like, I'm just going to open the floor and say, like, let's hear your story, because really amazing. And you have a school, and just tell us all about it. And it's only 15 minutes. I will watch the clock, so you don't have to. Carry on. Go for it.
Well, I wouldn't say that I've had a career in crypto. I've been very interested in the concept of decentralization, and it just so happens that crypto operates in that space. But that's not really my career. I've had quite an eclectic background. Part of my background has been in education, so I've worked in and taught and managed schools. But more recently, I became involved in data science and AI. And the reason why that kind of reinvention happened was because I was trying very hard when I was in a school setting to look at different ways that schools could organize themselves. Because one of the problems that you get with schools is that it has a purpose. The school has a purpose and a vision for education, and they want that to be the driving force of the organization. But what happens as they get older and they scale is that they end up being driven by the mechanics of running a big organization, and then bureaucracy comes in, and that can subvert the original vision, the pedagogy, and it can dilute it, and that's death to any kind of really robust school environment. So I was looking at how could it be possible for teachers themselves to run the school, and they don't have expertise in management and running organizations. They have expertise in teaching, which is what you want to harness and what you want to be the driving force. The blood of the school should be the thrust of the teacher's energy and passion and vision. How do you do this? And this is really the same problem that you have in any organization, that you want to the people to make the decisions closest to the application of that decision. So you don't want decisions to be made remotely from that, because as you move further and further away into lines of hierarchy, that understanding of what the problem is and how best to solve it becomes diluted. So you can work really hard to have communication systems where you have that feedback flowing from the kind of menial day-to-day workers all the way up, and that they can make the decision. Or in fact, you can start to flatten, and you can start to empower the people that are really close to the solution, the execution of the solution, to be able to make those decisions. So you've got to do a lot of different things, and one of them is how to look at how information flows through the organization. And so effectively effectively I tried to do this at a conceptual level, and I looked at lots of different kinds of organizational philosophies, but they were always found wanting. And then when I discovered that tech companies were trying to do the same thing, they were trying to flatten their organizations, and they were trying to have people who could self-organize, but they were applying technology to it. I became really, really excited about that. And so I had to kind of upskill myself and understand what could be done with the power of data and technology to kind of enable a different kind of organizational force. And so that was how I transferred to a different world. I'm back now in the education sector, trying to combine technology with education, but not on screens, because I effectively don't really think that you can apply learning. The future of education is not online. That's a mistake. That is a load of technologists with a hammer thinking that everything that they look at is a nail, and that's not the way to solve the problem. So that we've got a much more complicated problem with education.
Wow, amazing. So like, God, there's about 4 different strands of like at least of things there, like the data piece, the technology piece. I'm curious about the education piece. So tell us about, what, like, so if online, given that we're just kind of starting to emerge in the middle of April 2021 from the very long period of lockdown that we've had in the UK now, and people have gotten used to going to school online and all of that. What do you think that the future of education is? I'm curious about that. Yeah. What's our children's future in teaching wise?
Well, I think the thing is that we've had a crisis with education for a really long time, in that we had a model that was built for the 19th century, a model that was a kind of a factory-based model. And what it did was very important and very good, because it kind of democratized education. In a way, it gave more opportunities to more people to get that basic bottom rung of opportunity in education. So it was really important in its time, but it didn't evolve. There was no innovation. It just got more and more entrenched in that model of rounding up children of roughly the same age and shoving them into a room, and then pouring information into them and propelling them off. And the problem was that the output of the factory was sending them hypothetically into a 19th century world, but they were embarking into a new world. And so that whole system started to break down, lots and lots of criticisms. And so all of the solutions that are discussed about how to make a better school have been surrounded, how do we make a better school? How do we make better teachers? And actually, to solve that kind of enormous structural problem, you have to take it right back to the beginning and draw a completely blank sheet of paper and say, okay, what are we actually trying to do in terms of educating our children, educating our populations? What is it that we're trying to do? What is the end result that would be considered to be a good result? And we haven't stepped far enough back from that. And if you think about the problems that I was talking about organisationally, they're effectively the same problems that exist in schools, is that you end up with a utilitarian method. How do you satisfy the greatest number of people? And that isn't a good solution for schools. And it used to be the only solution we had, because you had to round up the children, you had to put them in a box. There wasn't really any other easier way. And so the idea that you take technology and you recreate this already completely fucked up, system of educating children, but this time online, is nothing less than horrific. It's really, really bad, because we were already getting it so badly wrong. We don't need to be pouring information into human beings and consider that to be the holy grail of education. It's not at all. So it's solving the educational problem by sitting children down in front of a screen for 7 hours is really about as bad a crisis as education has ever seen.
Wow. Okay. So what do you think? What do you see the solution could be? I mean, that's the $64,000 million question. But go on.
Well, I think that in there lies the possibility for decentralization, as to take education out of the hands of larger institutions, to assume that as education scales into a large organization, flaws creep in. And what you do is you dilute the magic and the passion of an individual person or a small agile organization, and you weight it down. It's like coming down onto a butterfly with a sledgehammer. And so you actually don't need those economies of scale. It doesn't apply to education. So by decentralizing it and making it possible for each individual person to literally design their own education, and to be able to be able to coordinate small groups of people anywhere to learn anything, you will be able to literally have a completely bespoke education for each individual person, and you make it possible for everybody who has a skill or a life experience that's valuable to find some portion of their life in which they can make some of their income from teaching, and obviously connecting to other people in their community, and passing on their skills.
So
forget schools, gone. No schools other than small agile initiatives that can be where you can actually see who the human being is that's responsible, who's involved, where you rebuild the kind of authentic connections between learners and their mentors or teachers, and the end goal is to build a human being that has the ability to face a very, very complex world. So predominantly you're talking about emotional intelligence, stability, resilience, adaptability, and these kind of things. So everything that anyone learns in their learning journey has to be transferable. It's not going to be the same. There is no benefit to learning algebra if there is no concept of being able to transfer that learning into a practical situation.
I'm sitting here, I've got, I used to be a lawyer, right, and I've got a degree in history from one of the finest educational establishments in the world, let alone in the UK. And I'm like, well, what happens to my degree? I mean, like, what about all those dates that I learned in history, and like, all that geography, like, what, that's all just gone up in, like, I'm amazed, and I think it's super inspiring. And I'm like, what does that mean for university, and what does that mean for like the professions? But I think that's the point, isn't it? It's like we have to just kind of rethink everything, and that's kind of what I'm hearing. So
universities are in big trouble
anyway.
They were in big trouble before COVID, and because people were certainly in the UK, but it's even worse in the United States, because you're suddenly faced with this proposition of spending £30,000. And what you're actually trying to get out of your university education is not really an education. It's actually about gaining a badge which enables you to gain a wage premium.
It's about getting a better job. That's right.
If you get this badge, you're verified and you get a wage premium. However, the economics of scale, so getting more and more people to go through university, doesn't have the effect of creating more intelligent population. What it does is it brings down the value of the degree. So effectively, you now need to have 4 or 5 years more education to be the manager of a coffee shop than you did in 1940. But it's much easier to be the manager of a coffee shop. And in fact, you're about to see all the jobs of managers of coffee shops disappear and be replaced by panels with buttons and so forth.
Well, that's
it's happening everywhere. So you've got to understand that you have to ask yourself a question. If I invest £30,000 into this degree, how long will it take me to recoup that investment? And you have to include in that calculation the 3 years of lost income and the 3 years of lost acceleration of your career. And at the tipping point that equation no longer adds up is the point that university proposition collapses. They no longer have a unique selling point. There's some marginal issues about it being a great party and all the rest of it, but even those start to pale into insignificance. And at the same time, if you start seeing independent institutions offering alternatives, let's forget that what the quality of those alternatives are. If they can just get the prestige level, the badges, if you like Google. So Google's a really good example. They've come out and said, you can do our software engineering course or software testing course, and it's 6 months long. I think it's 6 months, I'm not sure, and it is equivalent to a degree. We will consider it, if you apply to Google, we will consider it as equivalent to a degree. poof, all the computer science courses get devalued instantly. So that's just going to happen more and more and more.
Yeah.
So the universities are in big trouble. But now the COVID, they put everything online. So my daughter went down to university in Falmouth in September. She hasn't walked into a single classroom. They put the entire university curriculum USB stick, and it's on YouTube. So now, are you going to pay? There's no party going on. Are you going to pay £30,000 for something you can effectively find on YouTube?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I've been doing a master's. It's so amazing. I'm doing a master's at the moment in psychosocial studies, which is so connected to what we're talking about, because it's all about like the inherent discourses that there are in society, the origins of them, which is essentially 18th, 19th century historical conversations that persist relevantly or not, like with relevance or not, but I've been very deliberate in the fact that, like, with the work that I do with women, and like I have a specific aim for the masters in terms of elevating my reputation in that particular discourse, and that's why it's had me go and do that and be willing to pay the money and study. But it isn't about like I'm going to come out with a better job at the end of it. I've done that. I did that 25 years ago. But and what I see is that if I had children, which I don't, it's like, yeah, where's the relevance of that actually now, when you can go and get a degree standard qualification from a company like Google, which has a super high reputation in the world, is at the forefront and the cutting edge of technology and development, and like is going to be the future essentially. Like, why would you spend 3 years of your life going and getting a degree that doesn't do anything? We have to finish there. It is very short, as always, 15 minutes. That's the cut-off time. Amazingly fascinating conversation, Avida. Thank you very much for like really challenging all the perceptions that we've got, or at least I've got, and opening my mind to a whole different way of educating ourselves and becoming professional and all of that. If people want to get in touch with you or like learn more about what it is that you're up to, what is the best way for them to do that? How do they?
Avida@eq.org. Just email me, have a check out our website, eq.org, EEQU. And I'd love to hear feedback. We've just launched a new version of our software, which effectively is a decentralized education system. At the moment, we're focusing on outdoor educators. So if you're teaching outdoors, if you're converting anything that you do to outdoors, which you should be, and getting people more out connected in nature, then we're probably the platform that you should be seen on.
Great. So that's eeqq.org. You can find the details in the description underneath the video. Thanks very much, Avida.
Thank you.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye-bye.